So today we have Christina Stevens here with us, a CRNA that has a lot of other hats that she wears. So Christina, can you just introduce yourself and then
Sure.
we'll go into everything else from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello, I'm Christina Stevens. I am a nurse anesthetist for the last 10 and a half years or so, over 10 years. I've been a nurse for 18 years. Um, I went to Northern Michigan University. I'm very proud of that. And then for CRNA school, I went to DePaul and North Shore, so in Chicago. With all of that, have worn many hats. I've been an Epic analyst. I was a vice president of CRNA service and operations for a few years. Um, and ultimately, I found a place of burnout, unfortunately. Started investing in real estate, and right now I'm doing full-time real estate.
Wow, this is a lot to unpack,
Yeah.
but that is awesome. So let's start from the humble beginnings of nursing. What did you do like where did you start before you became a
Yep. So I shadowed my cousin's best friend, who's an anesthesiologist. Her name's Robin, in the suburbs of Michigan, the summer between high school and college. I knew I wanted to do something anesthesia. I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought I have to shadow, right? Like you have to make sure that you feel good about it. So I spent half the day with a nurse anesthetist, half the day with her as the anesthesiologist, and thought, yeah, one of those. I'm going into anesthesia. I like anesthesia a lot. And that all started, just to give a small bit of backstory. My best friend since grade school, she did a presentation. We were in this 2-hour health occupations class our senior year of high school. She did a presentation on nurse anesthetists. I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
I was, what is that? I don't even know. And so that was what piqued my interest, like how I found out about it. I feel like anesthesia as a nurse anesthetist, it's some people find out about it after they get to ICU or, in the hospital. So yeah, my best friend's the one that afforded me or awarded me that profession. And at that point, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. And now what's even funnier is I'm a nurse anesthetist. She's a pediatric nurse practitioner. However that works, right? So yeah, I shadowed. I stayed as a chemistry major as well as doing nursing at Northern Michigan University. And then by the end of my junior year, I thought, like, no, I want to go into the nursing side of anesthesia. I like it better. I can create my own schedule more. I'm not going to be on call as much, stuff like that. So did that. And then I was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That's where my college was, stayed and did a critical care internship. And doing a critical care internship essentially was giving me the ticket to CRNA school, is kind of where my head was at, right? Like I got to get paid to learn open hearts and neuro and all this. We were a level 2 hospital. So, and that's pretty good for the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, I would say, doing all those cases. So, yeah, I did that. And then after just over 2 years, I decided I wanted to travel nurse. I had humble beginnings to begin with. So it was my way to see other parts of the country. I'd never been able to travel, or we didn't do family vacations, things like that. So my first one was in Texas. After that, I actually went back to Metro Detroit and did an almost year contract as a travel nurse at the University of Michigan. And that was in their cardiovascular ICU. So I learned so much. We did so many cool cases, ECMO, heart transplants, lung transplants, really, really cool experience. And then from there, I went to Northern California, Carson City, Nevada. That was an interesting moment. And then I landed in Sacramento, California for my last travel assignment before I went to CRNA school. So yeah, that's been where, as an RN, all the fun things that I got to do.
That's awesome because I just talked with Josh a few weeks ago, Josh Condato, and similarly, he knew that he wanted to be a CRNA from like the beginning, but he didn't do what you did and like explore the nation. He just went he pretty much just went right into anesthesia school, right? He did the associate's route first, and then he got into the local hospital to get his ICU experience, let the hospital pay for his BSN.
Yeah,
and
smart.
Immediately once he got that BSN, he applied to CRNA schools.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, super sweet path, because like things are paid for and you're just taking advantage of time. Whereas you were like, let me free spirit this and let me travel a little bit, make some good money.
Yeah.
And I already know what I'm going to do, so I'm going to do it anyway. So let me go there.
Well, and I'm a little bit of a rule follower. I feel like I'm getting better now, like being an entrepreneur. I'm like learning how to, think outside the box. But all of the CRNA schools that I looked at were like, you have to have a minimum of 2 years before you apply, all of this. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this internship. And then I do want to travel because I haven't never been to California. I had been to Northern Texas, but not, San Antonio. So I wanted to be able to get all that in. So I started CRNA school at about year 5 of being a nurse.
So your travel contracts that you did, those were like, I'm guessing they're all ICU nursing contracts.
Yeah.
So those count towards the ICU experience as well for CRNA school?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so why don't other people do that? That sounds awesome.
And I really feel like it gave me a little, I don't want to say a leg up, but my first contract in San Antonio, I was the most seasoned ICU nurse on the unit.
Oh, wow.
2 years out. And I thought, that's so sad. I was training their new grads. I was training their students. So when I think about how it just really set me up for success going forward, it really, I knew that going into travel nursing, they said, have experience, don't go right into it, all of that. But yeah, I had no idea I would be training their staff essentially 2 years out. Yeah.
No, that's amazing that the travel counts as experience, as it should.
Yeah.
And when you applied to CRNA school, did you just do like a apply everywhere kind of thing and see where you got in, or?
Yeah, I applied to 4 schools in Michigan because that's home for me, and 1 in Chicago. And I got into the one in Chicago, which was telling me I was not ready to like move back home and, do the Michigan thing yet. I needed to continue to explore the country. So I'm grateful. I couldn't, North Shore is amazing. I'm so grateful that was where I went. And the leaders there are fantastic. And even now I'm so excited. So I'll give them a little plug. One of my anesthesia classmates just took over as program director. And I'm so proud of him, like 10 years out, and he's doing such good things, and he's going to do great things for the school.
That's awesome. So how long did you work as a CRNA until you started becoming like, I need to do real estate?
So I started in real estate in 2021. I started learning, let's say, because, again, rule follower, making sure I got the education, went to the conferences and all that. So I started learning January of 21, and we bought our first property December of 21. So not that we weren't looking or trying to do different things in between then, but this was our first property, was the first one that felt right. So December of 21.
And was that, like, I'm looking at your Instagram right now, midterm rental, multifamily, self-storage investor. Did you go straight into midterm rental, short-term rentals, or you did like long-term first?
It's a little bit longer of a story. We bought our first property December of 21. We bought our second property January of 22. So we bought 2 properties within a month. The second one was supposed to be a long-term rental. The first one was a gut rehab. So we knew it was going to be a while before we were doing anything with that. So we weren't even thinking about what we wanted to do. Initially thinking it would actually be a flip. And then 2 months in, we decided to burr it. So that property, 3-4 months in, we started thinking about, it's close to the airport, the highways, hospitals. Maybe we do go the midterm rental route. And I give big thanks to Sarah Weaver for that. She's a fantastic midterm rental expert and has really poured into a lot of us. But we took longer because we decided to do a lot of sweat equity, right? So we could have hired it out completely. It would have been done in probably 5 months. Instead, we spent 11 months renovating a house because we did so much of it. And also our contractor fired himself after botching our kitchen. So, it's not all rainbows and butterflies for sure. It really came down to that one's going to be a midterm. Our other one, we bought pretty turnkey. We had to do a couple things, but we handed it off to a property manager, and they let it sit for 4 months. They then put a tenant in that paid first month's rent, security deposit, didn't pay again. So literally we made $0 on that house the first year, and fired our property manager the second that she was evicted, and furnished it and turned it into a midterm rental as well. And it's been doing incredibly well since then.
Did you hire someone else to do the property management afterwards? Did you say you're doing it yourself?
So we are self-managing all the hospitality and the bookings and
Mhm.
all that, but I have to give a huge plug to my stepdad. He is our handyman. He has done so many of our turnovers. He mows the grass with my stepbrother. So it's like we've turned it into a little bit of a family
Family business.
business.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. It's good.
So I was just talking about this with my previous guest. Like both of us have long-term rentals, and we've been for some reason I can't dive into the midterm, short-term rental game because my brain just says like, "There's so much
Oh.
risk. Like, isn't there so much risk?" And I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, luckily I have you here to talk to."
Yeah.
So, how did you get over that hurdle of being like, instead of the lower rent, of course, and I
Mhm.
guess stability of long-term rentals, how did you figure out that midterm rental would probably be the best scenario for the homes that you have?
I'm going to call it a 100% leap of faith on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, initially. Now I feel like we have a huge vision for it. But being a travel nurse myself, doing locum work as a CRNA, it really just put me in a different headspace of like, I started travel nursing in 2008.
Mhm.
In 2009, we literally drove from Michigan to California. The contract I was supposed to have didn't work, which is why I landed in Carson City for 5 weeks. That was a very interesting piece of my journey. And then landed in Sacramento. But we literally drove to Sacramento, stayed in a hotel, drove around, asked apartment complexes that looked nice in nice areas if they had any furnished rentals. And that was how I found housing. It was like pre Airbnb,
Oh.
pre furnished finder, very stressful. So when we were talking through midterm rental and watching Sarah Weaver's, Yona McIntyre, these amazing women doing good stuff in the midterm space, I thought really struggled to find housing. And again, that was pre websites and pre Airbnb. But maybe this is something like people will latch onto the fact that I'm a nurse and I did travel nursing and I did all that. And I will actually tell you that my vision was like, so like I'm going to take care of healthcare.
Mhm.
And we've been doing this for a year and a half. We've not had a single nurse. So if I really had like honed in on like, oh, I'm only going to take nurses or all of that, we'd probably be, promoting a little more in Facebook pages or something. But we've had so many engineers. I would say engineers are our top client or guest. We've had flight attendants. We've had adult seminary students. That was interesting, like a husband
Yeah.
wife duo with preteen boys. And what else? We've had people living local that are doing renovation on their house and
Mm.
don't want to live in a construction zone. So yeah, we've had the gamut of people, but it's worked, and I am just so grateful. And most recently, we can get into a little bit later, we started doing midterm rental arbitrage. So that's been super fun and
Yeah.
exciting as well.
We'll definitely go into that as well because we started going into arbitrage and we're like, "Oh, man, that's another thing I wanna wrap my head around a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
better." Like, there's another podcast that I listen to, it's called The Big Break Show with, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez, and he
Oh, yeah.
talks about how I think it's Jesse that talks about that. I forgot what he does in, the healthcare field, but how he started his midterm rental empire, I guess you want to call it,
Yeah.
is that he went to like the local hospitals and asked, "Can I be on the list as one of the people that provide housing for your corporate or your local, I mean, your travel nurses or whoever's your traveling physician, your locum physicians?"
Yeah.
And that's how he got on the list and how he's been able to consistently get people in his midterm rentals.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously I listen to so many midterm, short-term rental
Yeah.
stuff and I just can't jump into it. And like I don't know where to start. Maybe that's why. It,
I hear that. I do. So here's your unfair advantage, right? Is you are a nurse.
mhm,
So when people, especially like I said, the goal was nurses for me initially. Locums for APNs and CRNAs, travel nurses. Um, that you have that when you make a furnished finder account and you put
mhm,
that like I'm a nurse wanting to take care of traveling professional healthcare or whatever that looks like, right? Like you have that unfair advantage of I know what you lived through. I've lived in New York. I lived through,
COVID and
COVID.
everything.
Yeah, exactly. So just again, telling your story, I think really makes a difference. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of it.
So just tapping into what you just talked about. So when you make your like Furnish Finder account,
Hmm.
I'm guessing it's similar to optimizing like a resume where it's like you could just like take advantage of keywords and being personable with the people that you want to serve, kind of thing like that.
Yeah. One of the things I will say I started doing maybe 3 months in, because I was trying to hone in on travel nurses, is I made a list of a bunch of different travel nurse companies and started going on their website, seeing if there were options like Aya Healthcare, AYA.
Yeah.
They actually have an entire landing page where you can put your information for where your properties are. So you fall into a database for them. Not most of them don't have that, but at least you can see what's out there. Aya's growing. I feel like it's one of the
Yeah.
ones that still calls me, even though, doing anesthesia work, I still get phone calls because I travel nurse for years. But yeah, they want to work with people. And as we get a little more into the midterm arbitrage like conversation, I'll tell you a relationship that I just built and I'm really excited about.
Well, we'll go into that next.
Okay.
For I guess this is another thing too. I guess if you're trying to get traveling professionals for your markets that you go into, are you looking towards like what kind of neighborhoods do you look for? Like obviously they probably make good money, so they don't want to live in lower class areas.
Yeah.
So you look for like what do you look for properties that you would potentially buy?
So I won't buy in an area that I wouldn't feel safe living in. So
Okay.
that's my first, it's like number one for me. Like if I don't feel safe there, I don't want other people living there. So our first property, I would say, is a B neighborhood, maybe a B minus. It's very like blue collar working class families, very safe. Just all the houses mostly look the same. They're all like 3 ones on slabs that with 2 car garages detached. Like that's the neighborhood. And it works. That house is great. Our other property, I would say, is probably in a C plus, but gentrifying area.
Hmm.
So like it's teetering on a B minus. Um, there's a lot of commerce going in. Like Amazon just put a huge warehouse there. There's a huge mortgage company downtown, and so with that one, because we made it a long term, thinking like, oh, it is kind of a C plus. Like, would nurses want to live in a C plus neighborhood? Though it's safe, it's still working its way
So,
up. The
mhm.
houses aren't super pretty. Like our neighborhood's okay, but like some of the surrounding areas aren't as pretty. And that house has been a grand slam for us. Like I'd love to get again. I know you live in New York. It's an expensive area. My wife's a New Yorker, so like even upstate is expensive.
Oh
Like
yeah, for sure.
my in-laws are in Albany, and it's so expensive. But we bought that house. It's also a 3-1. There's no garage, but it does have a driveway, large backyard, fenced with a shed. We bought it for $82,500 off market through a CRNA friend's dad. He owned it since 1969 and just 84 years old, ready to be done. So 82.5 for
Wow.
a turnkey. He renovated it before we bought it.
And he probably kept it like really well maintained.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. He's an attorney, like, all this. So, uh, as a long-term rental, it was a 22% cash on cash return.
Wow.
So, and that was at about 1,300 a month, like 1,275 to 1,325 a month. We furnished it, turned it into a midterm. We had a guest, 2 electricians that were working on updating electrical in a hospital. So that's the closest thing I've had to anything hospital, which is again so funny to me. They were there for just about 4 months. And then after that, I had a company in South Korea that's working on a huge project with Samsung sign a year corporate lease with me.
Wow.
So yeah, they moved in October and they're there through at least October or November of this year.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
that is really cool. So you bought it originally as a long-term rental and
Yep.
as the neighbor, this is the one with the neighborhood getting better and better kind of thing.
Yep. And it's with the bad property manager.
Oh wow. And
Yeah.
so it's just continually getting better and better. And then
Yeah.
as time went on, you were just like, let's midterm rental it. And So what made you just decide to switch it from the long term to midterm? Like if it was already making that much cash on cash return, like
Oh, so that's the one that if it was making money,
oh
it would have
if
been a 13. But that's the one the property manager didn't
right
rent
didn't.
it. And
I
then
see, I
literally
see.
we made $0 our first year. $0. But our holding costs, right? Like our PITI was $450 a month.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
like, yes, did it suck to lose the money? Sure, but like it's not like we had a house for 3,200 PITI. It was
Yeah.
450, you know. So it
It's
didn't.
like
We were okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
you could
we were
beat
okay.
that up and be like, we'll make that back very quick kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yep. Yep.
And if you don't mind,
Yeah.
where is that market? Like you don't have to say the exact area, but you could say like
Oh yeah. So we only at this point, and I'm not gonna say it will always be this, but we only do Metro Detroit.
oh wow.
Yep. So that house is in Pontiac, so it's about 40 minutes north of Detroit. Our first house is in Garden City. It's about 30 minutes west of Detroit.
And wow, so that it's blowing my mind the price of the house and then going from there. And then how many houses or properties have you bought before you went into arbitrage?
We just have the two that we own right now. And then we started our first arbitrage in January of this year.
And for the listeners that don't know what arbitrage is, can you explain that to people?
Absolutely. So I feel like a lot of people know arbitrage more for short-term rental, or we'll call Airbnb arbitrage,
Mhm.
things like that. And I think that has maybe a little bit bigger of a name, but we don't do any short-term rentals. We only do midterm rentals, 30 plus day stays. But it's essentially the same thing. We're looking for property management companies, homeowners, that's pretty much it, to partner with and furnish properties and then take care of all the hospitality and, take care of the guests. The flex that I did is I made a list of, it was beginning of January. I made a list of 60 property management groups or some houses, but mostly property management groups or apartment buildings that I wanted to vet. Those are the ones that I felt comfortable with as far as location. Then I thought, what can I offer in my houses? I can't offer pools seasonally. Obviously, it's Michigan, and gyms. So now I'm going to take that list of 60 and say high amenity buildings with 24-hour gyms and seasonal pools. And I got it from 60 to 8. And then I just went down that list of 8, started making phone calls saying, I'm getting more inquiries than I have properties. I do furnished rentals. That's my business. I'm a nurse, so I definitely seek travel nurses and traveling healthcare. But I just have a supply and demand issue. I would love to partner with you on this. And I got 6 no's and 2 yeses. And the what I found out is the 2 yeses were actually the same property management company. I had just found one of their properties through their personal website, not through the property management company. And so literally within 10 days, I had a corporate lease with them and I moved forward with it. And we went live in February after we furnished it and got it all done. And it is right now booked through September.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is the whole thing with like the arbitrage thing. Like you're gonna get a lot more no's than yeses. And I guess the hard part, I guess for me too, is having the balls to do it. To take those rejections and to
Yeah.
continue doing it. And
Yeah.
also I guess where everyone else also gets stuck is the analysis paralysis of it, of how do you do your numbers to make sure you're going to be able to rent it out and
Mhm.
still pay the rent that the holding cost pretty much that
Yeah.
you're going to be there. And are you funding this all yourself?
So this is where, and I know some people that aren't in the real estate investor space or entrepreneur space would, you know, tip their nose at me on this, but we have done a very good job getting 0% for 15, 18, 21-month credit cards. And that means I don't have to bring private money lenders or private money partners in at this point. I have the credit card paid off in 6 months, and then I can just rinse and repeat because I have 0% interest. So I'm using other people's money at 0% interest through leveraging credit cards right now.
I love that you went into that, because that's what I do for a lot of my long-term rental stuff, and pretty much anything that I need for like the businesses that I have. And then if I don't, as much as I know a lot of people that hate credit card debt is going to be like, if I needed to put something on a 0% interest, and I'll be like, I'll pay that back later, like kick the can down the road kind of thing. It's not that I don't have the money to do it. It's why see 10, 20, $30,000 leave my bank account right now when I could pay a 0% from, even if it's 12 months to 24 months. Why not pay it in 12 months and it doesn't hurt mentally. And you don't see like a big minus $12,000 on your bank account. Like,
exactly.
I think I love how you're doing that, because I feel that a lot of people don't use the credit card game to their advantage. And that's also something I would love to teach as well. I'm sure if, do you have a course or class? Like, I'm looking at your link tree.
No. So there's so many things that I would love to educate on, and I have not found the like time or space to be able to like package it, you know. But yeah, the arbitrage, I mean, we're so new to the arbitrage space. And as far as furnishing and funding our first two, we just did it out of pocket. And then I was like, why? When I'm literally every single day getting these credit cards. I will tell you that the next kind of level or tier is business credit, right? So right now it's all personal. But while I still have really low utilization, even with furnishing these properties, we've continued to stack credit cards for points. We also travel hack and point hack a lot. That now being able to do, 50,000, 0% interest for 12 months business line of credit or business credit card, like those are the next levels that we're planning to get to.
No, I love how you're going into this, because like I was just like talking about this again with other people, and they couldn't wrap their head around like 0% for how long, and you could balance transfer. And so I love how you also said that you use a lot of points and rewards stuff. Like, so I just had a big purchase that I had to make for one of like the rental properties, and I was like, let me put this on my travel card so I could get 3x points from, let's say, like $10,000. And then, like, obviously the credit card thing's like, I'm gonna pay all 10,000 from myself. I was like, nope, I'm just gonna balance transfer that to a 0% credit card, and I'll pay that off over 18 months. So, and then I was like telling this to one of the people I was talking to. I was like, so I got the 3x points, and now I don't have to pay this back in full until 12, 18, 24 months, whatever the term is. They're like, so do you do this often? I was like, yes. Like, why wouldn't you? They're like, what's the downfall? I was like, the downfall is if you don't have the money by the time it's time to pay, and now you're just stacking debt, and that's when you get in trouble. But the whole point is understanding your financial situation, which I love that you just brought it. You just reconfirmed my thoughts. I just loved it.
No, so much of when you start learning, right, people go to Bigger Pockets or like, find all these different people that are like, let me help you buy your first rental, right? Like there's a lot of those people. The plug I would make, and I don't even think she's doing the class right now, but like Rachel Richards, Honey Money, she's an amazing human to be able to learn from. She's very patient and knows her numbers, like such a good like finance brain. So I definitely appreciate her as a friend and as somebody who does a really good job pouring into people. But they keep bringing up other people's money, and it's like the bank is also other people's money. And when you think about 0% bank options, that's even a bigger flex, And so to kind of also attach the 0% balance transfer, because that's also how we do it. We balance transfer. We have an Amex Platinum. It's 5 points per dollar on anything we do travel. And like, depending on what month, there's different specials. So that's our preferred card. Everything goes on that. And then we balance transfer to the 0% cards.
It's such, I know we'll go back in the arbitrage, but like, I love that this conversation, because it's such an amazing tool, because there's another nurse that I'm talking to. I'm trying to get him on the podcast, but he's very shy. He's doing like flips in Ohio right now. And then he was asking, he's like, he's like, I know you said you're willing to lend money out. I'm like, I am. And I was like, but can I tell you a better option? He's like,
Mhm.
and then I showed it to him, and I showed him like the 0%, and like certain credit cards will put the cash in your bank account.
Yeah.
And then you can do it that way, so it doesn't look like it's like you're swiping a credit card to whoever
Yeah.
you're paying. And then like he asked me, he's like, why did you show me this when you could have made 8, 12, 15% off me? I was like, I would feel bad knowing I had this knowledge where you're just starting out in your real estate game. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm sure something in the universe will return this back to me. And
Yes.
he's like, I can't believe you showed me this, because he only did it with one credit card. And once he burrs it or once he flips it, he pays it back off. And then now you're just having revolving credit. And now he won't even need my money,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
unless he does something like big. But
Yeah.
I think that's like like, I'd really just love that you brought that up, because not a lot of people, obviously a lot of people like money. They want to make money. That's why we're in the game. But to show people and educate people that you, like you said, other people's money is still bank's money or credit cards money they could
Yeah.
get at 0% is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was hearing people, I'm not gonna say all of them were gurus, but people in this space talking about how once you get into it, people will actually you'll start attracting people that want to be in the game passively.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll throw money at you. And I'm like, it's probably not, like, we're not there. Like, literally 2 weeks into gut rehabbing our first house, right? 2 weeks into doing that and starting to post on social media, we had 2 people reach out to us and say, I have $60,000 each. So literally 2 weeks in, $120,000. Like, we have $60,000. What do you want to do with it? And we weren't even ready for that conversation. We didn't, we're still demoing a house. Like, right now we don't need anything and we can't do another. Like, it's just us doing sweat equity. So, and that's happened more and more. We've had friends say, yeah, I'm too busy, I like my job. I've had anesthesia friends, same thing, that they really like giving anesthesia, and so they're just like, what can I do to work with you on this? And some of them, they're accredited investors, right? So some of them, I'm actually leaning them towards, go be a passive investor. The hands-off investor, for anybody who's looking to that's accredited or can find 506B friends and family deals. The Hands-Off Investor by Brian Burke is such a good book. And so one of I would say, the friend that I never thought would come to me and say, I see what you're doing, I want in. Like, never ever in my life did I think that would be her. She reached out and she's like, all right, let's go. What do you want to do together? Like, and so for her, like, I know what her goals are, just being good friends with her. And so, yes, I would love to at some point have her as a private money lender or even a private money partner. But in the meantime, learn about syndications.
Yes.
And potentially put your money into those. So yeah, same thing. I'm like steering people as I'm like watching kind of their why and their bigger purpose of it. And same, like, I could absolutely take their money, but also let me help you find other avenues as well.
Yeah, that's such a big component, because I work in an EP lab. So I work with a lot of anesthesiologists, a lot of electrophysiologists. They make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Same with SCNAs. And a lot of them all message me. It's like, oh, I see what you're doing in real estate. I see that you have long-term rentals. Would you be willing to take my money and we'll give a return? And I kind of look at them, was like, to be honest, sorry, not to be cocky, I don't need your money right now, but we'll keep this conversation open. But have you looked into syndications?
Yeah.
I was like, because I work with you. I don't want you in the case while we're working together, where's my money? Kind of thing like that. I was like, you can be making returns off syndications, and you won't even have to worry about a single thing. Just wait for your check to come in the sense of dividends or whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I'm, practicing what I preach. Like, I'm an LP in 2 multifamily syndication funds. And I specifically chose funds because it diversifies within the syndication. It's not just one building. So if one's better performing, one's not performing well, it just at least neutralizes a little bit.
I know I want to get back to arbitrage, but since you just went into that too.
Yeah.
That's okay. So you also, since you're already doing your midterm rentals, we'll get into self-storage soon. And we have a lot to talk about. But
longest podcast episode ever.
yeah, probably. As long as you get the time. And as long as my wife doesn't yell at me from
Yeah,
upstairs, where are you? We need you
let's
up here with the
go.
kids.
Yeah.
Um, so you already have your own real estate business growing.
Mhm.
Why? I guess the question would be, why are you also doing syndication?
So the first syndication I did was we started having the conversation in October of 22, and then I think I funded it December of 22. Is that right? Yeah, sounds about right. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. In July of 21, my wife's birthday is in July. We were going to Florida to just have a few days in sunshine, and I got a targeted ad for a multifamily event, just a one-day multifamily event. At that point, we were trying to buy duplexes. This is how uneducated I was. We were trying to buy literally 2 to 4 units, but mostly leaning towards duplexes at this point. So I see this ad for multifamily, and I was like, a multifamily conference. We're trying to go to multifamily. It's a one-day event. Let's just fly in a day early and go to this event. And so did I do any research? No, I just like booked it. You know, I was busy like doing leadership. I was a VP at the time. So like I just booked it and decided I'll learn about it when I get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was just on board. She's great. So we get there, we're in line to register. And I don't know if you've ever been to any multifamily or
Yeah, I've
commercial
been
real
to
estate
like one
conferences.
or two.
I've gone to, at this point, probably like 16, I think is my number, something like that. I networked myself a lot in the last few years, but we're standing in line to register. We have people coming up, handing business cards, hoping they're blank or hi hello apps to scan to have their digital business card. Before we were even in the room, this is happening in the line to register. And after like 6 people in a 2-minute span came up and like tried to hand us business cards or scan their card, I look at my wife and was like, where are we? What are we doing? Like, I'm an extrovert, so I was okay with the interactions. She's an introvert. She's like, what is this? So we walk into this conference room, and I'm just looking for like somebody else who's extremely new. And I found one woman sitting at a desk or a table by herself. And I was like, oh, let's go sit with this other woman. Maybe she's new too. Maybe she doesn't know anybody. That's not true. She was very well networked already and knew a lot of people in the room and was just coming to like meet new people, essentially sit at a table by herself in hopes to attract new people. Her name's Aubrey Grimsley. I still give her so much credit for everything I've done. She is a managing partner for a multifamily syndication. She has done a lot of really cool stuff, but she said at the end of the event, let's become LinkedIn friends. And I had never, LinkedIn was anesthesia only. LinkedIn was healthcare. And I was like, do I do that? Like, do I actually become friends with somebody that's real estate on LinkedIn? I was like, you know what? I like her. So yeah, I'm going to do what she wants, so we connect on LinkedIn. The next month, she sent me a ton of virtual events, conferences. She introduced me to a bunch of people. Like, she just poured into me for 30 days and still like, she'll still send me stuff. But like the first 30 days, she literally was just like, oh, you should check this out. You should check this out. I started going to all these virtual events, weekly meetups and that. And I just got into this space of like, oh, syndication's where it's at. Like at that point, I was just like, I'm accredited. I can do all these things. And I'll also tell you, we had talked maybe pre-recording that I worked at New York Presbyterian for 2.5 years. I actually converted that 403B into a self-directed IRA. And the first syndication was completely not out of my pocket. It was just my retirement money.
Wow. That's another cheat code.
Yeah, for sure. Self-directed IRAs are amazing. So yeah. And so, yeah, I started there and like, this is while we were, renovating a house and like, we weren't making any money on that yet. So I was just like, oh, this is good. This is money in my sleep. It's the first second income stream I've ever had. Like, I've been a nurse for all these years. I've only ever had one income stream. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad that was like, oh, you should have at least 4 income streams. And I'm like, what? I have one, and I've only ever had one for my entire adulthood, And so it literally was the first time I was like, I'm making money in my sleep. I don't have to like show up to a hospital to make this money, And that was a huge eye opener for me. So, and my second syndication, I will tell you, I did it because last year I was 85% 1099.
Mhm.
I did an anesthesia IT consulting gig for New York Presbyterian again for 6 months, 7 months. And then all my anesthesia work, with the exception of one of my facilities, was all 1099. And I needed some kind of
Tax
depreciation.
write-off.
Yeah. So that's it.
Wow. You got a lot of stories, and I guess you really went into this. Where do I go from here? Like, I want to talk about the self-directed IRA. I want to go into the arbitrage.
So many things. Yeah. It's Here's what I will say is I think that the overwhelm of what you can do in real estate investing is real. Like the shiny object syndrome is there, and midterm rentals felt right, and it like definitely feels like the thing that I need to continue to do because we're doing it successfully. I like the hospitality. It's still giving me purpose and like service, especially as I'm not doing any kind of healthcare stuff right now. It's like giving me that higher purpose to be able to take care of people. And then the multifamily syndication is just really nice for bonus depreciation. Commercial real estate definitely is a whole different beast. Yeah, we could probably talk for another hour about all the benefits of commercial real estate.
Mhm.
But the bonus depreciation is, I think, the like key component for me as to why I will continue to also invest in syndications.
That's definitely something that, as it continued to grow, I guess, net worth wise, is syndication will be one of the things I go into. For just like a little glance over on the self-directed IRA,
Yeah.
do you just used your New York Presbyterian retirement account?
Yep.
Do you have another retirement account with any other? So you'll use that one that you used?
Yeah. So the anesthesia group that I worked for before we moved to New York City, I just kept that in the 401k that they had. Now, if I knew better, if I knew what I knew now, then I would have pulled it into a self-directed IRA. And I'm still credentialed with them, so like I can't move that one yet. If I ever were to not be credentialed with them, I would do the exact same thing and just move it into real estate.
Last part of the self-directed IRA thing
Yeah.
before we go into everything. I was actually having like a conversation with, I think it was my sister-in-law and someone else, where they've hopped jobs a few times for different health systems, and they're asking me, so do I just consolidate all my retirement accounts into one? I was like, I'm sure there's a better option out there for them. I was like, I think I even brought up like self-directed IRA, then you'll be able to choose something that you want to do that doesn't have to conform to whatever investment company that health system
Yep.
is partnered with. Because obviously, I talked about this with Josh, that not all these health systems, whoever they partner with, have the best funds in their 401k or 403b. You hardly get the percentage growth that you would even want. Plus, there's all these like random fees and all that stuff that doesn't make sense. And then you're still going to get taxed at the end of by the time you're 65, 70, whenever you start having to pull it. So just love how you just went with the self-directed IRA part. But now we could go into going back to the arbitrage. So when you furnish the places you're arbitraging, do you go for more expensive items, or do you go into like a IKEA type stuff? Like how do you choose how you furnish?
So I will give 100% credit for our first 3 properties. So the 2 we own and our first arbitrage to my wife, Stephanie. She is the creative. She's a professional dancer, artist. You know, she started a journal planner business 2 years ago. So she's definitely the brain behind she's the method to the madness. But since then, because she does dance and she also teaches Pilates, started a journal planner business, just literally this past week, we have decided she is going to just do journals, planners, Pilates, dance right now, and I'm going to focus on real estate because I'm doing it full time. And again, one door closes, another opens, right? My best friend also really wants to get into interior design. So I just got keys for our second arbitrage on Monday, this past Monday. And my best friend is doing all of the design and install, which also gives me a little bit of time back because I don't have to travel to Michigan from Chicago. But we gave her the guidelines. You know, we have a checklist of every room that we have to furnish. And we try to stay within a budget. So like these are 2-bed, 2 baths. And so we're trying to stay somewhere in the like 6,000 to 7,000 range. And so she has full reign of what she wants to do with that amount of money. And a lot of stuff we'll do Wayfair for furniture. We have been using Zionist beds from Amazon. We buy, you can go right to Zionist, but we're doing this just for free shipping and all that through Amazon. And so, yeah, we've like kind of honed in on what makes sense. The only things we get from IKEA at this point are plates, glasses, and cups. Other than that, everything is usually from Wayfair or something a little bit better quality. Not to say IKEA is not bad quality, but you know, just we go a little bit higher end. But
yeah, because you're renting it out, I guess you could say, to professionals. So I'm guessing they also want to see like a higher quality furnish.
Yeah, and we, as far as like bed frames, we do all platform beds. I don't really love box springs, and it's just another thing we have to move, all of that. So we're doing all, you know, foam or hybrid mattresses, things like that. But blackout curtains, again, because the goal is always travel nurses. So blackout curtains, good quality beds, good bed frames. There's a desk in every property that we have. Floor length mirror has been one that we've made sure to add in. Everybody loves a good floor length mirror.
Of course.
And then comfortable seating, always a dining room table of some sort. And then, the other big flex, and here, if I'm going to convince you that you need to go into midterm rental, we have been doing Roku TVs, and it's been such a game changer. There's like 100 plus free channels, plus all of the streaming services, and you can set it to guest mode. So your guest can actually say, I'm here until whatever date, and then it will clear all of their information at the end.
Wow. That's you're throwing so many gems out here to me. Like I'm actually I have a notepad out right now, and I'm like typing it all in.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, midterm, like I can't say enough good about going into the space and now really feeling like deep diving into more midterm rental owning and arbitrage. The arbitrage space is just allowing me to have cash flow as I continue to build my own portfolio.
And for the arbitrage, I think you told us, are these like 1-year leases at a time, or you're trying to get like multiple years with the property that you're arbitraging?
So with this first property management company I partnered with, I am doing year leases with them, with the intent of continuing, but their comfort level is a year at a time.
Okay.
And I think that's okay. I will tell you, on Easter Sunday at like 8 a.m. in the morning, I had an insurance claim reach out to me through Furnish Finder. And so I spent, I did Easter with my family and then spent the entire evening researching houses because they're looking for a house to live in. They had a fire in their house. Insurance claims are another whole thing that like we should probably have another podcast.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have you back on here because
thanks, Ray.
Yeah, insurance is wild.
Yeah, it really is.
We could go into that in a different thing. I just know that nationwide, for all my long-term rentals, they changed up that if your primary house isn't under nationwide, you can no longer have my long-term rentals on there as well. So I got a million, well, not a million because I don't have a million houses, but I got a bunch of mail sent to my property manager that she forwarded to me.
Okay.
Saying you need to change up your insurance by April 1st, or they're going to start fining you because Nationwide doesn't, because the mortgage company was like, your insurance company isn't renewing and you need to find another insurance that will. And I was like, this is coming up on Easter. Like no one's open.
Oh my God.
So luckily I was able to switch it all over to,
okay, good.
I don't even know the company, American Modern.
We
But I
just
need,
switched to them for one of our properties because our insurance dropped us too.
yeah, I'm like, why? I was like,
Yeah.
you're making money off me. And then I was like, and I remember even calling Nationwide being like, you're losing up on thousands of dollars now that I have to switch, right? They're like, oh yeah, the new protocol is that if you don't have your primary under us, so you could switch your primary. I was like, no.
The bundle.
Yeah, I was like, nope. I have my umbrella policy here with this, cars, everything. There's no way I'm switching. But
Yeah.
I was like, you just lost that on a few $1,000s.
Oh, unfortunate for them. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
actually, we went to a dance show last night, and one of the artistic directors who owns the company, her husband sells insurance. And so I was telling him about doing the arbitrage, and he's given me his card before, but he literally reached in his back pocket and was like, why are we not talking about this? And I was like, can you do furnished rentals? And he's like, yes, I will do all of it. And I said, in Michigan? He was like, yes. So I can give you his information too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, that I know I said we could do another podcast about insurance, but dang. So, geez, you have so much information that I'm trying to extract from you.
I wish that like social media is a thing. And I actually just on Upwork, I just put my first inquiry for hiring my first VA. Like I want to be able to pour into people more, but like there are so many hours in the day, and social media comes unfortunately a little bit, I won't say last, but it's definitely not the primary.
100%. We could go into insurance another time because there's something I want to get into two things I want to get into. Geez, self-storage. You just got into that?
So I've actually been in a storage mastermind since 21.
Okay.
Because I started going to mostly multifamily conferences starting July of 21, and then meeting all these multifamily syndicators. The shiny object syndrome got me for a long time. 22, I spent most of my time learning how to underwrite and looking at multifamily deals. Still in a self-storage mastermind though, like learning that process as well. And then for 23, I partnered up with somebody in it's AJ Osborne and Investor Britt Arneson, their self-storage mastermind. I partnered up with somebody in the mastermind, his name's DeMonte, and we underwrote, I don't even know, over 100 self-storage deals last year.
Oh, wow.
We got our first one under contract in December. And unfortunately, on Tuesday of this week, we backed out of it during due diligence, essentially. There's a legal settlement. The current owner built over a setback line. The township essentially said if ever 50% of the building was ever damaged for anything, fire, flood, tornado, that we would have to tear down the part that's over the setback line. And like, I was worried about insurance, like I'm too risk adverse at this point to take on something that could end up not being great. So yeah, unfortunately we had an LOI I accepted last year. We ended up in due diligence, same thing, like it just didn't make sense. And then with this deal, we were very excited. I was able to negotiate 0% interest. Like it went from a 3% interest only for 15 years to me being able to like build a rapport and a relationship and get it from 3% interest only to 0% interest. Seller finance. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to get into next. So seller finance, sub 2, Pace Morby stuff.
Yes.
Is that how you learned it?
I have been following Pace Morby in creative finance for a couple years. Again, the shiny object syndrome, right? I'm like, well, if I can buy commercial real estate on creative finance, that's a huge flex, and I should learn how to do that. So I started, the first offer I ever made on storage was a seller finance offer. And that was January of 22, I think it was.
How do you convince someone?
This deal specifically, they were open to it. And so it was an on-market property. He wanted way too much money. So like, even if you can negotiate seller finance, there's still a number that makes sense, right? And he was well over that number. He put it up for 2.4 million initially, and we got it under contract for 1.8. And so like not all seller finance deals are good deals, right? You have to really, really make sure you run your numbers appropriately. And so the way that we were able to negotiate 0% interest seller finance specifically was it's undermanaged. It was only 70% occupied. there was improvements that needed to happen. So just from a CapEx budget, there was a lot that we needed to do in order to get it to a good place. We had to market like crazy. That was going to be an expense. And then we were thinking outside the box as well. One of the partners that was going to be on the deal with us was talking about doing mini mailboxes. That's like a whole niche thing now, right? That woman in Las Vegas is
Yeah,
like
Las
making
Vegas.
this whole business out of it. EV chargers is something that we were looking at because Michigan's doing a big EV charger grant program. Billboards. It butts up to a high school football stadium. So we were going to build out this cool little like pergola of vending machines, and we would probably sell out every week because of all the high school kids, for track and football and everything else. Yeah, we were trying to think like the goal is increasing NOI, right? When you get into commercial real estate, it's not about the comps anymore. So we were like, okay, it's undermanaged. We'll work on that. We'll market, we'll go to the neighborhood companies and, do all this kind of stuff. But then on top of that, we'll add all of this other value. So when we go to sell, now we've decreased our expenses, really gotten it to a good place, have good occupancy on top of all of the additional income. And so, yeah, sorry, I went on a tangent. That was all the goal. That was the vision of this property. And we'll continue to go down that path to be able to think outside the box on how to make a storage facility more than a storage facility. But sometimes you just have to listen. I feel like that's like the best thing is just quit talking, just actively listen, find the pain. There's always a pain point, especially if something's been on the market for a little bit. Like, what's wrong with the house? Like, it just listen and then just be a good negotiator.
So to tie nursing back into this, like
Yeah.
obviously we have to be good listeners because we do our assessments and not so you could easily see that. But I think the pain point as nurses, we're not good at that negotiating factor.
Not at all.
How do you what would be your advice to someone trying to get to that point to be able to negotiate
Yeah.
with obviously other business owners or even negotiating to get like a property under a certain price?
Yeah. That what's funny is when I start talking to people, the first thing that I will say when the conversations like this come up is I have been a nurse for 18 years. Negotiation is not a skill I ever had to learn. I don't have to negotiate with, I mean, I guess there is sometimes if you're dealing with like somebody detoxing or in DT, like I guess there's a small bit of negotiation in those cases, but for the most part, we just care for people and this isn't something we've had to do. So, what has improved my negotiation skills, and again, we haven't even gotten into this, is to afford me going full-time real estate. I partnered up with a seasoned wholesaler, and I'm running the acquisition side of the business.
Okay.
So I'm literally on phone calls all day, every day, having conversations, listening to pain points, sharing their options as far as like, we always give a cash offer if it makes sense. Sometimes they just refinance in 22 and like they have no equity in the property. Usually we can't cash offer those.
Yeah.
But then we can do subject to seller finance hybrid. We can do a novation agreement. Like there's just so many different options, or land contract, executory contract. So not only am I learning more about creative finance, I'm also giving options or solutions to people. And so when I think about why I'm negotiating or like sharing information and doing the active listening piece, it's like, it's not about me or, how I can make money off their house. It's how can I solve their problem? And so it's the shift of, it's not about me, it's about them, and making the conversation really spearheaded towards solving their pain point.
And I think that's a great topic that you brought up because obviously one of the misconceptions about, I guess you could call us like landlords, is that we don't care about the people in the house or the people that we're buying the house from or anything like that. Whereas there is a different viewpoint on it where, especially that nurses here, we want to solve the problem. We'll take the headache off you, but we also got to make sure it's worth it.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah. And when you think about subject to seller finance, even lease options or rent to own, things like that, wraps, they're the bank. Like they
Mhm.
are, you still have to deal with them. So like building that rapport and that relationship from the beginning is so important because you're gonna have to deal with them for whatever your balloon period is, right? Like you said, an 8-year balloon for the next 8 years, there's gonna be some semblance of responsibility to them, you know? So
Yeah. I almost did my first sub two earlier this year, but then as I was looking over the contract, they slipped in a little clause
mm,
that said they have exclusive right to sell the property at any point after like I rehabbed it or something. And I was like, where did this come from? And they're like, oh, it's been there. I was like, no, it hasn't. So I sent it to my lawyer. They're like, yeah, that's a no-go because that means even after you fix up the property and make it to scale and to market rent and all
yeah,
that,
yeah,
they could just kick you out and sell it. I'm like, yeah, that's a no-go.
yeah. Wow.
But yeah, it was
Interesting
a
clause.
snake move, but
Mhm.
I was so happy that I caught that and my lawyer caught that too.
Yeah.
But so many tangents. I loved it.
So many
I'm trying
things.
to there was a okay, this is gonna be a question I'm sure I'll see in the comments or people messaging me, which I highly recommend people to comment if you're gonna question anything on videos instead of just DMing me because it helps with engagement on the videos.
Yeah.
So you're a CRNA.
Yes.
Obviously, you guys have a very high income. What would what was the reason? Like, why would the question is why would you leave such a high income to do this full time when you're probably still in your prime and you could still make super high income?
Yeah. Uh, so I will say I'm probably have some like unprocessed trauma from COVID in New York City. So there's that.
Mhm.
But leaving New York City to then take a senior leadership role in healthcare was 80-hour work weeks, some weeks, multiple weeks. For the first like 4 months, it was constant 80-hour work weeks, working all the time, not ever really being able to shut my brain off or enjoy life because I was just so inundated and focused on being a leader. And there are people that can do that, that can just like, yep, these are my hours and that's it. I can't because I guess maybe I care too much. But um, I really got burnt out during my leadership role. And so walking away from leadership was the right thing to do. When I went back to giving anesthesia, I was like, okay, this is why I went to school. This is the thing that I love doing is like actually taking care of people and feeling good about it. But in a post COVID world, a lot of people left, a lot of people
Mhm.
retired. And as I was picking up different per diem contracts and that, there were days where I would get there at 6:30 in the morning and nobody came in to even try to give me a lunch break until like 2. And so when I think about how and doing Epic also gave me a little bit of that, like, freedom, like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
can walk outside during my day," right? Because when you're in OR scrubs, you
Mhm.
can't leave the hospital,
Mhm.
so, I feel like, you're very much stuck in a building. So, doing Epic, I was like, "I can go out to lunch, and I can, like, choose when I go to the bathroom," and, like, all of these different things. So, I had a little taste of freedom during Epic, but then coming back to just clinical anesthesia, doing per diem contracts and that, the money is amazing right now for sure, but my sanity is a little more important. So just like fulfillment of like going to bed at night, being proud of the thing that I did that day, or feeling like my sanity or like me going to pee in an 8-hour shift is appropriate, things like that. So it really is about finding life fulfillment more than money at this point. Like the goal is life freedom, right? Like
Mhm.
time freedom, location freedom, and all that. And I'm creating that life. Like I'm essentially like rebranding and like figuring out what life looks like, not sitting in a windowless OR for from sun up till sundown, essentially. And I miss it? Yes. I'm not going to say that I don't like been doing anesthesia for a decade. But because they're not listening. Like, I feel like nurses have so much to say, and we are the ones that get heard the least. even though we're the largest component of a hospital, right? That the politics are really what's getting me.
I feel that a
Yeah.
lot. And I
Yeah.
see that a lot with all the other CRNAs too. And even some of like the anesthesiologists. I know a lot of people left their positions where I work because of politics,
Yeah. Yeah.
favoritism, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it sucks.
Sucks. It really sucks. And so yeah, it was more about like at the end of, you know, at 60, what am I gonna say? Like, what's my legacy? Or like, am I gonna be proud of all the things that I did? And like, obviously, I'm credentialed at a lot of places still. I will never, at this point, let my license lapse. Like, and right now, they're like just literally throwing money at CRNAs to come and like pick up contracts at places. So I've even thought like maybe I work a day a week and just like have that added income, give me that service. Humbling, I guess, But again, like if you don't think that my life is worth a 20-minute lunch break or like a 5-minute pee break, then I don't support your business because my life is just as important as that patient's life. And if I can't even like think anymore because I haven't eaten in 8 hours, like that's not a life for me.
No, I like that a lot. I just talked about this with the previous guest too, is that when we were talking about the entrepreneurial space, that we're still working, me and him are still working as nurses, but um, doing real estate, I guess, social media and whatever kind of businesses everyone else has, where in the sense of other people looking at it, and for you, you actually are pursuing it full time, where a lot of people would question you or question why are they doing that. And I got tired of answering that question. I was like, oh, how come you're doing this, this, and that when you could just make this amount of money just doing OT? Or like, why are you just trying to pursue these businesses? And then I was like, if I don't do this for myself, I'm gonna go crazy. And if the businesses work out, I gain everything.
Yeah.
And then if the businesses fail, guess what? I work till I'm 65, just like you.
Right.
And like, I don't. And would I consider that a loss? Maybe, but it's also what the norm does. So I
Right.
can't not do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Your backup plan is to do what the
Everyone else.
majority of the country is doing. Yeah. And that's same for me, like if for whatever reason, this doesn't work, okay, I'll just go back to doing the thing I would have been doing for the next 30 years anyway. And like taking a chance on yourself. I think that it's so important to like prove to yourself that you're worthy of doing something bigger than what you ever dreamed to do when you maybe went to nursing school or, anything like that.
And even though we're going to wrap this up very soon, if you had to give advice to anyone, whether it's going to CRNA school or venturing out into entrepreneurial space or
Yeah.
like you going to midterm rentals, I know that's a lot of questions at once. What kind of advice would you give?
I have really had to do a lot of soul searching, right? Like there's been a ton of soul search in all of this. Like so many of my anesthesia friends or even my physician friends been like, but you work so hard, right? And I'm sure you get that too. Like, but you work so hard to get here. Like you've done all this and you're good at it. And so why would you walk away kind of thing? I don't regret for a second going to nursing school. I don't regret for a second going to CRNA school. I'm so grateful for the career that I've had so far. I think the thing that we need to allow ourselves as nurses who our identity is so wrapped up into being a nurse is that it's okay to try something new. And that doesn't mean that you're going to always like you don't always have to walk away and have that be it, right? Like the clean slate, like that's it, I'm done being a nurse. Like, but don't let being a nurse be your full identity. Allow yourself to think outside the box or like know that your ceiling is no longer your ceiling. And yeah, but with that said, I don't regret any of it. I think going, especially once I made the pivot to anesthesia, uh I'm the first, my last year as an RN as a travel nurse, I made six figures in California because it's California. They were just paying well. But I worked 60-hour work weeks to get that, right? And so when I think about going to anesthesia school and being like, okay, now I'm making, I started out as a new grad at 160, right? And then I progressively did better. And like most of my years were making 200 plus, but I, again, also working 50 plus hour work weeks to get there, right? But when I think about the money confidence that it gave me, that wouldn't have been true, right? Like if I didn't have this, like this is what my time and like what my value is, if I had to put a number on it, like a dollar number on it, that I wouldn't have the confidence that I have now doing what I'm doing. And so I would say if you really want to be a nurse or a nurse anesthetist or NP, like whatever you're going to do it, because like I also think it's important to follow your passions. And if you get into it and 10 years later, you're like, that was awesome. Now I'm ready for the next chapter of my life, then do that too. Like just give yourself permission to not have your career be your full identity. Because the second that I did that to myself as a leader specifically, was like the demise of my like sanity essentially. So yeah, do the things that you want to do, that you're passionate about. We need nurses. We need people that enjoy the work that they're doing every day. But also just know that it's okay to step away and try something new and like take a chance on yourself.
Yeah, that great point, because I feel like, man, we're so many tangents. I'm so sorry. But a lot of nurses, since I've been a nurse for now 12 years, and I've seen some very good nurses make their personality all about nursing, and I feel like they've gone down in productivity, or they're so burnt out and their attitudes, personalities changed, where they're just meaner people or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's probably because you've taken so much burden of the role of nurse and you're just keeping it on yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything outside of these four walls in the hospital for yourself,
Yeah.
for your well-being, to, like you said, blow that ceiling off and see what's out there for you.
Yeah.
And so that is some great advice. And if people wanted to learn more about you, how would they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I am on all the socials. I'll say I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is just the Christina Stevens. Try to make it easy for people. I'm also on LinkedIn. I also host, if I can plug my
Yeah, of course.
virtual meetup, the second Sunday of every month. I host a virtual meetup. We this month essentially have rebranded. We're not solely focused on commercial real estate anymore, and our speaker for next Sunday is the one for this month. Is actually going to be talking about the stock market, equities, just different things. And it, in real estate, there's a debt component always, right? Like either from the bank or seller finance, things like that. But there's always a debt component. And so part of what he's going to go into is like, there's a lot of upside in what he's doing. He co-founded a hedge fund at 19. He's 22. He's literally brilliant. And so, yeah, I would love to see you if you want to come hang out.
Oh, I definitely, I
On
love
Simply
stocks
Sunday.
and equities and all that. So
Yeah,
Sundays are my open days, so I could definitely do that.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and that was founded because when I took my leadership role, like sometimes I'd build a lunch break in so I could at least go for a little bit to these virtual meetups. And then when I went back to clinical anesthesia, my lunch break was 10:30 to 2, sometime in there or never. And so we created Simply Sundays to be able to hit those like 9 to 5ers or healthcare people that couldn't actually take a lunch break. So yeah, I would love to see you and anybody else who wants to come hang out.
Definitely. So again, thank you, Christina, for hanging out with me for more than an hour. And since I have so many questions I still want to go into later, I will definitely be reaching out to have you again.
I love it. Yeah, online, offline. I'm happy to definitely, especially to just give you permission to try the midterm rental space.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think you'll love it.
That's in the game plan now.
I love it.
All right. Thanks
Cool,
again
Brian.
for your time. Have a great weekend. I'll see you very soon.
Sounds good, Brian.
All right. Bye.
Bye.